The day my dad's will was read, I found out my real value to the family. Sweet sod all. My brother James got the golden home, the $1.2 million portfolio, and full ownership of Morrison's hardware. Me? I inherited $200,000 in business debt. 7 years later, James works in my warehouse. I'm Daniel Morrison, and this is how the son who got nothing built everything while the golden boy went broke. Right. Let's rewind to where this whole mess started. Portland, Oregon, 1985. I was born 3 years after James. Mom used to say I was their surprise baby, which basically meant I wasn't planned. From the time I could remember anything, I understood the pecking order in our gaff. James was the star. Captain of the football team, straight A's without even trying, charming as hell. He was everything Dad wanted in a son. Me? I was different, quiet, preferred books to sports, asked too many questions, challenged Dad's opinions. And in the Morrison household, that was basically treason. Dad, Robert Morrison, ran Morrison's Hardware, a shop his old man had started back in '52. It was his pride and joy. He always banged on about how this store will stay in the family forever, means it would stay with James. When James turned 16, Dad bought him a truck and made him assistant manager. When I turned 16, I got a knackered old bicycle and a job stocking shelves for minimum wage. Cheers, Dad. At family dinners, Dad would toast James's accomplishments. Here's to my son, future owner of Morrison's Hardware. Then he'd look at me and add, and Daniel, who helps out. Mom would squeeze my hand under the table. Her silent apology for favoritism she never had the bottle to challenge. I buggered off to college on a full scholarship I'd grafted for. James stayed home, working at the store, living rent-free. Dad called it learning the family business. I called it what it was, being handed everything on a silver platter. But here's the thing about being the black sheep. You develop a hunger the golden child never knows. A need to prove yourself, not to them eventually, but to yourself. I graduated with honors in business management. Worked 3 jobs through uni because Dad said, education is your problem, mate. The business is James's future. When I came home with my diploma, Dad shook my hand once and said, that's nice. James just increased store profits by 8%. That was the day I stopped trying to earn his approval. Sod that for a game of soldiers. Dad dropped dead when I was 29. Massive heart attack while opening the shop. He was 68. The funeral was chaos. Hundreds turned up. Everyone had stories about Robert Morrison, the hardware legend who could fix anything. James gave the eulogy, talking about Dad's legacy and devotion to family. Didn't mention me once. I stood in the back, invisible as always. At the wake, relatives asked James, so you'll take over the store now, yeah? He'd nod confidently. That's the plan. Dad groomed me for this. No one asked me a thing. I was just there. The spare. A week later, we're in the solicitor's office. Eugene Chen, Dad's lawyer for decades. Mom sat between us, confused. Dementia had taken most of her. Chen started reading. To my beloved wife, Catherine, I leave the life insurance policy valued at $300,000. Mum smiled faintly. I squeezed her hand. Then came James's bit. To my son, James Morrison, I leave. The family home at 2847 Oakdale Avenue, valued at $800,000. My investment portfolio, approximately $1.2 million. And full ownership of Morrison's Hardware. James leaned back, grinning. Exactly what he expected. Then Chen cleared his throat. To my son, Daniel Morrison, I sat up. Maybe there'd be something. Not equal, but something. I leave responsibility for all outstanding business debts incurred by Morrison's Hardware, totaling $197,000, to be settled within 18 months. Silence. only Mum humming softly. Sorry, repeat that? Chen looked genuinely pained. Your father designated you as responsible for the business debts. James inherits the assets. You inherit the liabilities, James laughed. Dad always said you needed to learn responsibility. Something in me cracked. Not rage, something colder. Why would he do this? I asked. Chen read from a note. Your father wrote, James has proven himself worthy of the family legacy. Daniel must learn the value of hard work and sacrifice. Even dead, I was the lesson. The disappointment. James stood, straightened his suit. Guess you should have stayed in Portland instead of running off to college. Don't worry, little bro. I'll make sure the business thrives. Then he left, whistling. I sat there for 20 minutes, hearing Dad's voice. You're not good enough. I walked out with $200,000 in debt, no inheritance, and the clearest truth of all, I never had a father. Just a judge, first thing I did. Investigated the debt properly. Requested complete financial records from Morrison's. As the poor sod legally responsible, I had the right. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Dad hadn't just mismanaged the business. He'd absolutely mullered it. 5 years of taking out loans to cover declining sales, using business credit for personal expenses. The hardware store was dying, and Dad's solution was to bury it in debt, hand the corpse to James, and stick me with the bill. Brilliant. The really clever bit? Legally watertight. I'd co-signed loans years ago when Dad said he needed my signature for paperwork. I was 23, desperate for his approval. Signed without reading like a proper Muppet. My options: pay $200,000 I didn't have, or declare bankruptcy and torch my credit for 7 years. I had $31,000 in savings, a steady job making $65,000 a year, and 18 months to find another $169,000. Most people would have declared bankruptcy, cut their losses. But being the unfavored child taught me something James never learned: how to scrap for everything. I worked my day job, then drove Uber at night. 5 hours kip maximum. Sold everything I owned, furniture, telly, car. Bought a cheap banger for cash. Moved to a studio flat costing $600 a month. Every single penny went to the debt, but it wasn't enough. I was barely making a dent. 3 months in, I had a light bulb moment. I couldn't pay my way out. I had to earn my way out. Started researching Portland. What were people buying? What services were pants? What could I do with basically no capital? The answer came from an unexpected place: the hardware store itself. I started visiting Morrison's, not to see James. We weren't speaking. But to watch. To understand what Dad had missed. The shop was exactly as I remembered. Outdated, poorly organized naff customer service. James would stand behind the counter scrolling his phone while customers searched for items that weren't where they should be. But people still came. Because they needed supplies, and Morrison's was convenient. They came despite the rubbish experience. I started chatting to customers in the car park. Did you find what you needed? Most said no. They'd drive to Home Depot next, 20 minutes away, because Morrison's never had proper stock. That's when it hit me. What if there was a service that delivered hardware supplies directly? No overhead of a physical shop. Better prices. Instant inventory through supplier relationships. I called it SupplyDirect. Spent every spare hour building the business plan. Reached out to suppliers Dad had burned bridges with and pitched a new model. I'd be the middleman, taking orders and facilitating deliveries for commission. They'd get new customers. I'd get revenue with zero inventory costs. 12 suppliers said yes. Launched SupplyDirect from my studio flat with a $500 website and a Google Voice number. First order came 3 days later. $340 worth of PVC piping delivered to a contractor. My commission, $68, I'd made more in one commission than a full day of Uber. Within 2 months, 47 regular customers. Within 6 months, $43,000 in profit. Still working my day job, still driving Uber sometimes, but SupplyDirect was becoming legit. Then James rang me. Daniel, it's James. We need to talk. 8 months since the will reading. 8 months of silence. What do you want? It's about the debt. I need you to pay it now. I actually laughed. Mate, I've got 10 months left. That's what the will said. Yeah, well, things have changed. The business needs the books cleared. I need proof those debts are satisfied or suppliers won't extend credit. Not my problem, I said. You inherited the business. I inherited the cleanup. Long pause. How much have you paid? About $95,000. I'm on track to clear it in 10 months. You actually came up with 95 grand? Yeah, how? By working, mate. You should try it sometime. He hung up. 2 weeks later, I'm driving past Morrison's and notice something mental. The car park's nearly empty. Saturday afternoon. Hardware stores should be rammed on Saturdays. I parked and walked in, curious. The shop looked absolutely shocking. Half the shelves empty. The ones stocked had random, mismatched inventory. A customer was having a proper go at James at the counter. I've been coming here 30 years, the bloke said. You used to have the best selection in Portland. Now you don't even stock basic electrical supplies? James shrugged. Supply chain issues, innit? Everyone's dealing with it. No, they're not. Home Depot has everything, so does that new delivery service, SupplyDirect. Got my order in 6 hours. I froze. The customer was talking about my company. In my brother's failing shop. James muttered something dismissive. Customer left, shaking his head. I approached the counter. James looked up, startled. Daniel? What you doing here? What happened to this place? I asked quietly. He looked around, defensive. Nothing. It's fine. Just a slow period. James, there are cobwebs in the window display. Half your shelves are empty. This isn't a slow period. This is a dying business. His face went red. What do you know about running a store? Dad left this to me because he knew I could handle it. Can you? His shoulders slumped. For the first time since the funeral, he looked human. Scared even. I thought it would be easier, he admitted quietly. Dad made it look easy. He just knew things. What to order, when to order. I don't know how he did it. I understood then. Dad hadn't been teaching James the business. He'd been letting James coast while Dad did all the real work. When Dad died, James inherited a business he had no clue how to run. How bad is it? I asked. James rubbed his face. 3 months behind on rent? Suppliers won't extend credit. I've been using the investment portfolio to keep the lights on. Already burned through $400,000, 400 grand. In less than 2 years. You could sell, I suggested. Can't. Dad's will has a clause. If I sell within 10 years, everything goes to charity. I'm locked in, a trap for both of us. Designed by a man who thought he was building a legacy but was actually building a prison. I have a proposition, James said suddenly. Merge your debt payment into a business loan. Help me save the store. We could run it together. 50-50. For a second, I almost considered it. The brother I'd wanted my whole life was finally asking for help. Finally seeing me as an equal. Then I looked around. The empty shelves, the dust. The failure. This wasn't opportunity. This was quicksand. And James wanted me to jump in with him. No, I said. I'm not saving Dad's legacy. I'm building my own. I walked out. Behind me, I heard James say quietly, You always were the selfish one. I didn't turn around. Because for the first time in my life, I was choosing myself. And it didn't feel selfish. It felt like survival. 18 months after Dad died, I made my final payment, $200,000 paid in full, 11 days early. I celebrated alone with cheap champagne and freedom I'd never felt before. I was 31 years old. I'd survived the weight Dad placed on my back. Now I was free to proper leg it. SupplyDirect was going absolutely mental. Word of mouth in the contractor community was everything. Fast, reliable, cheaper than hardware stores. Within a year of clearing the debt, 14 employees, $1.2 million annual revenue, moved into a proper office, hired a logistics manager, built relationships with manufacturers, launched an app for 2 a.m. orders delivered by 7 a.m. year 2, $3.4 million revenue, 31 employees, expanded to Seattle and Sacramento. Year 3, $8.9 million, 68 employees, 5 warehouses across 3 states. The business I'd started in a grotty studio flat was becoming what Dad's store never was, successful. Then COVID hit. March 2020. World shut down. Businesses collapsed overnight, but SupplyDirect? We absolutely smashed it. Suddenly everyone wanted contactless delivery. No one wanted to browse shops. Our model, the one I'd built out of pure necessity, was exactly what the moment needed. Revenue in 2020, $14.7 million. 2021, $22.3 million. Expanded to 11 states. 140 employees by 2022. SupplyDirect was third largest hardware supply delivery service in the Western U.S. I was 34, and I'd built something Dad couldn't have imagined. Then Mr. Chen rang again. Daniel, calling about Morrison's hardware. There's been a development. I've got nothing to do with that shop, I said. I know. But your brother does. He's filed for bankruptcy. The store's closing. James had lost everything. The $800,000 house, sold to cover debts. The $1.2 million portfolio, depleted. The hardware store, bankrupt. Inventory liquidated. Real estate in foreclosure. In 5 years, James had burned through a $2 million inheritance and destroyed a 70-year-old family business. One more thing, Mr. Chen said. The commercial property where the store is, it's being auctioned next month. Thanked him and hung up. Then I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. Went to see James. He was living in a 1-bedroom flat in Gresham, the kind of place I'd lived while paying off his inheritance. When he opened the door, he looked 10 years older. Knackered, defeated. Daniel, he said quietly. Figured you'd come to gloat. Not here to gloat. Here to talk business. We sat at his kitchen table, the same one from our childhood home now covered in job applications. I need a warehouse manager, I told him. Someone who knows hardware, understands inventory. Job pays $65,000 plus benefits. Room for growth if you prove yourself. He stared at me. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance. Same thing no one offered me. Why? His voice cracked. After everything, because you're my brother, and because I remember what it feels like to be written off before you've had a chance. I won't do that to you. He broke down. Properly broke down. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. For how we treated you. For being cruel when you needed family. I know, I said. And I forgive you. But mate, this is your last chance. I'm not saving you because you're my brother. I'm giving you an opportunity to save yourself. He took the job. That was 3 years ago. James is still my warehouse manager. He's good at it. Reliable. Humble in ways he never was before. We have lunch sometimes. Talk about Mum, who's in memory care I pay for. We're not best mates, but we're brothers again. Real ones this time. Last month, I did one more thing. Bought the commercial property where Morrison's hardware used to stand. Paid $620,000 cash at auction. turning it into SupplyDirect's flagship warehouse and customer pickup center. There's a plaque I'm having installed above the entrance, built by those who were told they weren't good enough. Not for Dad, not even for James, for every kid who's been told they're the disappointment. The spare, the one who doesn't deserve the inheritance. You don't need their money. You need their doubt, because doubt is fuel if you know how to burn it. People ask all the time, do you resent your father? You angry about the will? Honest answer? It's complicated, innit? Am I angry? Sometimes. Late at night when I calculate how much easier life would have been with even $100,000 to start SupplyDirect. When I think about the years of 16-hour days, the stress, the fear, but mostly, I'm grateful, not for what he did. That was cruel. But for what it forced me to become. If Dad had split the inheritance fairly, I probably would have invested it conservatively. Started a small business. Done all right. Been comfortable. Instead, he gave me something more valuable than money. He gave me hunger. The golden child never learns to hunt because they never go hungry. James had everything handed to him, so he never developed skills to earn anything. When the inheritance ran out, he had nothing left. I had to learn resourcefulness, resilience, how to build from absolute zero. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. And those skills? Worth more than any inheritance. SupplyDirect is now worth approximately $47 million. We employ 340 people across 14 states. Last year, $89 million revenue. I own 73% of the company. My employees own the rest through profit sharing. Because I remember what it's like to work for someone who doesn't value you. Every person who works for me knows your worth isn't determined by where you started. It's determined by what you build. I've hired people who were formerly homeless, school dropouts, people with criminal records, former addicts rebuilding lives. If you work hard and add value, I don't care about your past, because I know what it's like to be judged before you've had a chance. James is proof of that philosophy. He came to me broken, bankrupt, humiliated. Today, he's one of my most reliable employees. 3 raises in 3 years. Not because he's my brother, but because he's good at his job. Last Christmas, he gave me a card. Thank you for seeing who I could be instead of who I was. Dad gave me money. You gave me dignity. One of those actually mattered. I have that card framed, not as a trophy. As a reminder, money is temporary. Character is permanent. My company has a saying, we build people, not just profits. Every new employee hears the story on day 1. They hear that the owner started with $500 while paying off someone else's debt. That the warehouse manager used to own the business we competed with. That second chances are our culture, not our charity. There are 2 ways to build wealth. Inherit it or create it. Inherited wealth comes with expectations, pressure to maintain something you didn't build. You're a steward of someone else's legacy. If you're not careful, that weight crushes you. Created wealth is different. It's yours. You know every sacrifice, every late night, every risk, every failure that taught you something. That kind of wealth has roots. It can't be taken away because it's not just money. It's who you became earning it. My father thought he was punishing me with that debt, teaching me a lesson about inadequacy. Instead, he gave me the greatest gift, the necessity to become someone who didn't need him. Do I wish he'd loved me the way he loved James? Course I do. Every child wants their parents' approval, but I don't need it anymore. I've built something he couldn't take from me, proof that I was always enough. James and I had dinner last week. We meet monthly now, usually at a cafe near the old hardware store. Well, near my new warehouse. He looked at the building as we walked past. Do you ever think about Dad? Sometimes. Do you think he'd be proud? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Honestly, I don't know. And I don't care anymore, because I'm not building this for him. I'm building it for every kid who's been told they're not good enough. For every person who's been written off. For everyone who's had to start from zero with the deck stacked against them. James nodded slowly. He was wrong about you, you know. About everything. Yeah, I said. He was. We walked in comfortable silence. Two brothers who'd been pitted against each other by a man who thought love was a competition. Who thought inheritance was the same as legacy. But here's what Dad never understood. Legacy isn't what you leave for people. It's what you leave in them. He left James money, and James learned nothing. He left me debt, and I learned everything. So which one of us actually inherited something valuable? If you're watching this and you're the unfavored child, the black sheep, the disappointment, listen up. Your family might not see your worth. Might never see it. And that's gutting. It's unfair. It's painful as hell, but their blindness doesn't define your value. Their favoritism doesn't determine your future. Use their doubt as fuel. Let their rejection make you hungry. Turn their no into your biggest yes, because the most valuable inheritance isn't money. It's not property. It's not a family business. It's the knowledge that you can build something from nothing, that you don't need their approval, that you're enough even when they say you're not. My brother got the inheritance. I got the debt, but I built the empire, and that makes all the difference. SupplyDirect now employs 340 people across 14 states. James Morrison has been promoted twice and is now regional warehouse director. Daniel Morrison continues to speak about entrepreneurship and second chances. Catherine Morrison receives full-time care funded by her son Daniel. This is based on a true story.